give me a moment's peace and take out the trash.
We pay taxes for people to come and take the garbage.
Hey, listen, Greenie, no more sneaking rides to the junkyard. Yeah, man, take a taxi when you want to go to the junkyard.
Hello and welcome to Hot Trash Unlimited, the show where me, Caleb,
and me, Joe,
sit down on our couch and peruse the movies to find what we hope to be hot trash. Joe, what are we doing, wrapping up really with this episode?
Yes, this is the end of our YA books that became failed franchises, movie franchises, that is.
Yeah, not just YA, children's as well. I feel like if we want
Series
to,
of Unfortunate Events is definitely children's, yeah.
if we want to step into the YA, we can get into Maze Runner and
that ended.
What's the other one that did it end? Divergent, yeah.
That's the one that didn't end.
We can jump into that anytime we want. But what we're talking about today also, sadly, has not ended yet. I'm holding out over a decade later.
You know, it's never been it's over 2 decades later. You know, it's never been officially canceled.
That's true. The studio that made it has been swallowed up by another company.
Into nothing.
Hey, Joe, what did we watch this week?
We watched Eragon.
Our beautiful lands have been ravaged by a ruthless king. And our people live under the shadow of tyranny.
As long as I am king, disloyalty will be punishable by death.
There is no one left for you to fear, my king.
It wasn't always like that. There was a time when the world lived in peace, protected by warriors astride mighty dragons. They are nothing but stories now. All we have is hope that a dragon will be born again, and one will rise to lead us to freedom.
So I saw this movie originally before the book. I think this is the first in our podcast, or well, the last 2 episodes we did. I went to see it with my cousins and brother, and they had all read the book. They were a little older than me, and so they had read it, and I was super psyched because I felt kind of grown up going with my older cousins to see this
gritty fantasy.
Yeah, I probably saw this before I saw Lord of the Rings. Anyway, so I watched it. I remember loving it. I remember them loving it. I remember everyone loving this movie. I really wish I could go back in time because I bet they did not love it.
Capture those feelings.
I bet they were just nice enough not to spoil little Caleb's fun. But even when I read the book, because I quickly picked up the audiobook,
mm-hmm.
I fell in love with the series, but I still had a great fondness for this movie and got this DVD copy from the YMCA rewards.
Oh, I remember
section.
those.
Yeah. We got this in a bunch of seasons of Monk. For those of you who don't know.
Man, does that not just encapsulate your personality?
Every time you visited the Y or did like a fitness challenge, you got points on their online portal. And you could trade them in for great things like the Eragon movie.
The full screen edition.
The full screen edition that now, sadly, 15 years later, skips a bunch.
And you miss like half the screen because it's so cropped. It's like terribly cropped.
It's not like you're missing any good cinematography.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Hey, Joe, what's your exposure to Eragon?
I saw this movie probably shortly after it came out because my dad definitely listened to the audiobook. He was a huge, man, what were they called? Playaways?
Yeah.
Was that the ones from the library?
Yeah, we talked about those in our Percy Jackson episode.
Yeah. Did we? No,
yeah.
Series of Unfortunate Events.
No, because I discovered Percy Jackson from a play.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he loved Playaways. He'd always listen to those when he went to the Y, and loved Eragon. And I think this movie, it may not have been my first exposure. It's definitely one of my first memories of me watching something and hearing that's not in the book.
See,
during a movie watching experience.
I was the one who usually did that. So I'm usually like, Reepicheep isn't that color of brown.
I distinctly remember the moment where Saphira grows up and my dad going, oh, they're skipping all that.
The story here, for those of you who aren't up on your long finished fantasy
it's
series.
Not that long finished. Inheritance came out in what, 2011, 2012?
Say that again, Joe.
It's okay. It's been 10 years.
Yeah,
but
long finished. The story is basically Star Wars, but instead of lightsabers, The people have dragons, and instead of the Force, they use magic. It's basically beat for beat A New Hope.
It's very derivative.
And this movie actually is more derivative than the book, which is already fairly derivative.
Oh, yeah.
And this also, I should say, I still love the books, but this is the only book that has a story. The rest are just exposition with like framing devices.
I don't know. This one is pretty framing device of there's an evil king, but there's not actually any like conflict happening, except for there's these evil demons that tried to kill us, so we're gonna run. There's no external conflict other than that.
But there is a progression, like I guess, because like he's learning the magic and everything. Because young Eragon, one day while in the forest, the Spine discovers a mysterious stone, which turns out to be a dragon egg, and it hatches. They're in a universe where there used to be dragon riders, but then Emperor Galbatorix came along, and he had a young apprentice named Darth Vader. Morzan, and our Obi-Wan Kenobi of the movie, Braum, also lives in this village.
Oh man, hey, Han Solo does way more than Murtagh does in this movie.
Help me, Jeremy.
Also...
Irons, you're my only hope. Yeah, no, Murtagh, sadly, my favorite character as a child, shows up 3 times.
I think you're the reason why my memory of this movie is so scattered, where I thought Murtagh was Braun, because I remember, yes, he did stuff in this movie. You know who I didn't remember? The guy who shows up 3 times.
Murtagh was big for me. He was my username for a long time on different things like Millsbury.com and a website that was just like Murtagh 67 at, I don't know, whatever, like blipspace.web.com, whatever.
Oh, speaking of which, I checked to see if those sites are still active. Oh, they still exist.
The
free webs. That's what they are now. The domain changed.
So all our old websites are still up?
I deleted mine after finding out that it was still active.
I have no idea what my password would be. I don't know how I could get to deleting it. Well, anyway, if anyone wants to find murtagh67.web.com,
it's out there.
Man, this movie, what's there to say? It is, you asked me about halfway through if this was accurate to the book or if it was more like
because I think that's been a clear theme of these movies we've watched, where they haven't been too set on a franchise, it seems like, where they go for a very standalone thing and they fundamentally change a lot of the framing to make this into a series. This one doesn't really, besides the fact that it has no big conflict to goal.
Basically, beat for beat, everything that happens in this movie happens in the book. It's just that this is the Ren Fair version of what's happening in the book. Like, locations are pared down from like cities to mud villages. Enemies are like pared down from like, these like cool orc type dudes to guys in face paint.
Yeah.
And obviously a ton of the character progression and lore is cut down quite a bit, which I think in terms of the lore and the world building, I think kind of works here up until a certain extent. But I don't think you need Galbatorix's whole backstory. I think you get what's going on from what you get in this movie. The main changes come in the 3rd act, but even then, you could easily make a sequel from where they leave it.
Yeah, easily.
The things they change are like Murtagh is assumed dead. Jimon Hasu's character is dead. Arya doesn't.
In the book?
Yeah. Arya doesn't leave for the elves right away. So small things like that could easily, you could write your way around.
Yeah.
If, we lived in the wonderful world where this did make money.
No, it made money, just not enough. This was not a huge bomb. This made its budget back and then some. It just clearly was not the success they were hoping it would be.
But more than half of that was worldwide, and especially in the 2000s, that was not going to.
You needed a much bigger domestic.
Yeah, and this is an effects heavy story with the dragon.
It was also critically panned too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, it did poorly, but like just from a financial perspective. But I think you can definitely see that everything in this movie like was funneled into making Saphira work. Like all the money, all the scenes are written around her. All the money is drawn towards her. Now it doesn't always work. Like in the end, when you see the dragon armor, and it's completely different from what gets put on the model.
The thing you've seen literally 10 seconds before, and then she shows up. It's like, that is not what was being displayed.
Completely different. I don't know. I guess they wanted armor with less, like, that didn't cover Saphira's face in the final battle.
Yeah, probably.
Or maybe just this is a super cheap movie.
Which, you know, that's an actor thing. This is a CG model of a dragon. I feel like it would be cool to make her look fearsome.
But since that's like the central thing, what do you think about Saphira?
Like a lot of stuff in this movie, she's kind of boring. She is a dragon, and that is about all there is to her.
I feel like you could take all the Rachel Weisz dialogue, cut it out, and you would not miss anything.
Not a beat. There's no connection to Eragon.
She never like demonstrates that she is also a character who needs to learn stuff and grow up and stuff. She just
because she has all the knowledge immediately.
Yeah, and like she also has Rachel Weisz's voice, so like you have this child next to like an adult woman.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, well, of course the dragon knows what she's talking about. But I will put it this way. For 2006, she looks good.
Oh, no. I was surprised at how much she held up. Eragon on her does not hold up as much. But she looks pretty darn good in every scene that she's in.
Yeah, and especially when they show her flying, not when they do like the POV drone shots.
No.
Or helicopter shots.
Yeah.
Those look bad. But when she's flying, you get a real sense of like movement and speed, excitement. That stuff's good. And I'd say the final battle's pretty solid too between her and the smoke dragon.
So the problem with a lot of stuff comes in. This movie is I wouldn't call it a brisk 100 minutes, but it's, you know, it's not this long 2-hour epic, or, you know, with its companions in the fantasy world at the time of Lord of the Rings movies.
I think it's safe to say they have the foot on the gas the whole time.
Yeah, they have their foot on the gas. There are very, very quick cuts in dialogue to where these conversations are very get through the conversation on to point B. Get through the conversation to point C. So there's not really any time to really care about anyone or anything going on.
That's true. And because it's so tropey, like there's a scene that they literally just pull from Empire Strikes Back where Durza like kills one of his Urkels and then turns to another one. It's like, congratulations on your promotion. Like exact same.
So I know that's a big critique of the book nowadays. It's that it's like very tropey, but it's kind of thrown away with it being like, okay, he was like 15 when he wrote the first book or whatever. So it's a little excusable. I'm on that page because nothing's original nowadays. You can see Star Wars is super tropey.
Yeah.
Like it just so happens they're ripping off a very tropey thing already. But the main problem comes is just everything is so wooden and stilted. There's like no charisma between any of these actors.
Well, that brings up a good thing I wanted to say. Jeremy Irons in this playing Braum or Obi-Wan, super jittery. Like he looks like he's just like chugged like 5 espressos before going on set. And I think that would work because he's an actor. Like he knows how to handle himself and he has a lot of gravitas in his voice and stuff. But man, this kid playing Eragon is just like so stiff next to him. So you have Jeremy Irons who's just walking around the set, like constantly doing stuff with his hands, making these weird kind of expressions. And then cardboard cutout. I'm Eragon. I have a dragon. We have to go save the princess.
This guy was 18 when he shot this movie. Like this is a rare case of like this actor's playing like actually his age.
Yeah, and I think he's not terrible.
No,
I just think him and Jeremy Irons are in completely different wavelengths.
It's kid on his first day on the big movie set
having to act against
Jeremy Irons.
And when he's not acting against Jeremy Irons, against the dragon who's not there.
But again, that's actually not too bad.
They get the eye lines down.
Except for one time at the very end where he's not looking at her. Yeah, he's having to act against someone who is not there, against someone who I'm guessing they didn't. I'm betting at that point when they're filming, they do not know who's voicing the dragon at that point.
Oh yeah, probably.
So like there is no idea on how these conversations are going to go. He's not doing a terrible job. He just has nothing going for him.
Yeah. I'd say that's fair. I would say that's the same with Arya and Murtagh, but man, do they get nothing to do, so I have no
they
idea.
show up so late into the movie. Arya technically shows up at the beginning, but she doesn't do anything.
She's unconscious for most of it.
Yeah.
And
Murtagh shows up for 3 scenes.
He really does. You see him in the village. You see him during the rescue.
Which
you see him after the rescue.
If you had not pointed him out in the village, I wouldn't have known. I would have been like, oh, weird.
Well, like
I just think that's some shady guy in the village.
Well, that's exactly what you're supposed to think, but we'll circle back to the village because I want to talk about one other thing in there. So you have the rescue scene, you have when they go to the Varden, and then the battle, and then the end. So like 6 scenes total.
Okay.
And like it's this thing where Eragon's about to like throw away all the credit he has with the Varden to like save Murtagh, and you're like, why? Like, I care about him.
He saved his life. He owes a life debt now.
I care about him because I like projected onto the edgy like outside character, but I don't know, man. Jamon Hasu's in this. He's fun.
Oh, yeah. I guess it's more he's fun knowing he's in this, less than the character is actually fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing in this movie is fun.
His daughter has that 2000 circuit. That's fun. Wait, would you say Durza's fun? Like just hamming it up?
Not really, because like it's like everybody was like, all right, act. But there was this brick wall that like they could not rise above a certain level of just ham or like investment or anything to where like, sure, Durza is playing the maniacal villain, but only just enough.
Well, and it's a thing where they shot this movie in Slovakia and Hungary.
Yeah.
Usually with that kind of thing, for extras, they just get like locals because it's more expensive than flying out other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet a lot of these guys that Durza's acting against, a lot of the Urkels
just don't even know English.
Yeah, they're probably just like random Hungarians. And so like, because all they have to do is stand there and grunt. Like they never have
They don't
lines.
even have to be there in the scene with him. Those could be pickup shots.
That's
like,
true. Yeah. This whole thing is very cheap.
Okay, that's my main thing. Okay, this has a fair budget for the time, a big budget for the time. 100 million, that's a lot of money in 2006 for these kind of movies. But man, these are the flattest shots. This looks like a made for TV movie, like of the time.
It looks like something off of like Merlin or something. I was actually probably doing a discredit to Merlin, but
well, okay, so they're on location for a lot of time, which I can commend. There's now a huge amount of like super green screen or like super like we built this set in the back lot shot.
Yeah,
but there's just no dynamicness to any of these shots. Everything looks like as soon as they get past like the foreground, it's just a flat wall.
Mm-hmm. And
this director does not know how to make like depth or just like a wide like a grand setting.
And there are just so many weird stylistic choices where like they go to the Varden and they're all like in Byzantine armor, but then they also have dwarfs, but they can't afford to do trick photography. So the dwarfs are just like guys who are under 5'8", like, and have Scottish accents. Like it's just completely weird styles thrown together with no coherent logic.
Well, and the world's just so tiny at this point because there's 10 speaking characters.
Well, and just you think locations, there's village, forest, castle, forest,
other castle,
mud village, other castle, mountains. And we really blowed the budget because we wrapped up the movie in a field.
No. We wrap up the movie against the cloth.
Oh, yes, that's true. Because, man, I really hope John Malkovich got paid a lot for his one day on set. In his...
You don't even know who he is for the first, 45 minutes.
Dungeons and Dragons ass set. With his...
It's a big chair in a big room, and it's red.
With a big map covering the back lot of wherever they're shooting. You talked about, they built a set. This is the set they built.
Yeah. That's the only one though.
Yeah. And John Malkovich came here at 8:00 and he left at 3. Supposed to leave at 4, but he decided not to eat lunch so he could get done quicker. And the sound effects when the Brahm is fighting the Raza or whatever the bug people are called.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the most tinny sounds of the swords hitting each other. Cartoons have a stock sword sounds that are more convincing.
Oh, there's a part where they're walking through some village early on in the movie. I was like, I heard the World of Warcraft smithing effect. Like it was the same one.
I'm kind of delighted in how cheap this movie looks.
It's bizarre because like this isn't incompetent. This isn't like a movie of someone who just doesn't know what they're doing. It's just someone in over their head.
This movie had 3 editors, and I think you can tell.
Oh, there's a lot
because
of very choppy things about it.
there's just there was not enough coverage shot on a lot of this. So
Yeah.
there's just not a lot of continuity in the action
Well,
scenes.
and everything's everything's shot so close up. Like there's establishing shots or like the flying shots where someone's having to follow on where Braun's having to follow on horseback and stuff like that. But that's like the only time you'll ever get something that's not super close up with everybody.
I just don't think they had good choreography, or even that they and maybe it's just because this is a special effects guy who's directing, and he
Yeah.
was so focused on figuring out how the effects were going to work. I don't think he ever figured out how the shots were going to relate to each other.
There's like no pre-production.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, and we're shooting and we'll figure it out in post.
Yeah. Which, I think he's mainly concerned with where the dragon's going to be.
Which, he succeeded.
But maybe that's why he should be head of visual effects on this movie, and they should have gotten someone else to direct. The cinematographer isn't a no-name. Like, you would recognize some of the movies he did. He's not a respected person in his field.
He's not a first-time director and first-time lead actor.
Yeah. But you start getting into the writer, and you start getting into some of those positions, and you're like, oh, these are people who they did other things, and this was their attempt to make it big.
Yeah.
And they did not have many credits after Eragon.
A lot of this cast did.
Yeah, several of these cast members were already in stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
A lot of the younger cast, I should say.
yeah.
This wasn't a career killer.
Eragon's on Outlander
And
which
Downton
is-
Abbey.
Yeah,
Like 2 very successful TV shows.
yeah, that's pretty good. Those are 2 very solid paychecks.
Yeah. Murtag's actor kept doing movies and stuff. He was in Tron Legacy, and that movie bombed too, but
Yeah, but
he's continued to do movies and stuff.
he had some legs. Even Arya's actor, did she do anything?
She's Jill Valentine in the Resident Evil movie. She's the not the main character, because that's what's her name, Mila Jovovich.
Yeah.
But she is a main player in every single Resident Evil movie.
So you're getting a lot of people who are and it's the same thing with the cinematographer. They aren't stars. They aren't artists.
It's a bunch of C-listers, but they're career C-listers.
Yeah, it is journeyman actors
Yeah.
and craftspeople who are doing a fairly okay job. I think where this really falls apart is like I said, the basic editing of just making sure that shot A relates to shot B, and then just with the production design, how cheap this looks.
It's just so passable. And a movie like this, especially at this time where Lord of the Rings has just wrapped up, these huge budget fantasy movies that are so grand in scope,
and had so much attention to detail.
yeah, and where this is just it's by the numbers.
Yeah,
of something that was already of just a very tropey thing that already existed.
and I think that's the real trick here, is that you look at it, it's why didn't this succeed as an adaptation of this? Well, because they cut so much out, sure. But I think the bigger problem was just this was the wrong time to do something like this. Even, and that kind of relates to Percy Jackson. It's Percy Jackson was just falling off the coattails of Harry Potter. It's kind of the wrong time to do something like this.
Yeah, it's trying to capitalize on something instead of just, I hate saying this, doing it for the art of it.
Well, having enough space to do your own thing.
Having a clear direction and vision. This doesn't have a vision.
Yeah. And I think this is definitely people who tried, but just maybe they weren't the right people to try.
Well, yeah, this is Fox seeing the amount of money and the amount of awards and acclaim that Lord of the Rings has made, and then calling up 7 different people. Is your schedule free? We got to get this out in the next 2 years.
Well, it's the perfect thing. It's hey guys, it's Lord of the Rings, but Star Wars, and we
and
have
dragons.
and we have a young like Harry Potter-esque lead.
We
Like,
and this is we're not having to make this up. There's books to adapt it from. It is a continuing series that is not over yet.
and it's a young kid who we can probably get a pretty good deal on
For cheap.
Yeah. Christopher Paolini, I think, made out perfectly fine. I don't think he was bothered too much by this movie not succeeding, but like, there's something to be said about you're negotiating with the lawyers of a 15-year-old versus like someone like Daniel Handler, who was a professional by that point and had done a lot of different work and had been around the block.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably a lot easier to get a good deal on this.
Yeah.
And even then they couldn't make money.
It's just such a there's just nothing like, they have. I haven't read the book. I don't know if there's just not enough of a foundation to even get it going with.
There certainly is in the first one.
Yeah.
I think that relationship between Saphira and Eragon, that thing your dad missed when he saw the movie, if they had nailed that, that's How to Train Your Dragon before How to Train Your Dragon comes
That's
out.
true. I just think you either have to extend the movie, or they're going for this big action thing where I don't know that, because there's not really much action up until the final act.
Well, I think
But they're trying to get to the interesting stuff really fast.
I think the beats hit perfectly from the book and they carry them here. It's just they just kind of land flat here,
Mhm.
where it's like you established the threat with his uncle getting killed. Then you have them in the mud village, and it's like,
God, his uncle gets killed too.
Yeah. It's everything, man. It's beat for beat.
Wow.
But then like it's him kind of coming into his own, learning how to fight in the mud village. Then it's like his first real attempt out when he's saving Arya, and then you have the big battle. Like, I think those are natural beats to follow. Yeah. It's just you don't spend enough time like figuring out the progression there. It's like, well, how is he different in the final battle than he was in the mud village? I guess
an hour and a half has passed.
I guess he did a lot of training off screen. Saphira has armor now, 2 sets of it.
They did a tail flip. They said you're not ready for the tail earlier in the movie, and now he's ready for the tail.
Yeah. Now all that being said, this is the worst. This is the closest adaptation. This is probably also the worst we have
It's
watched.
the blandest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like it is the one that has the least, because at least with the Percy Jackson, which I'm not a fan of, when they make changes, they are having to put some thought into it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're having to put too much thought into this.
Grover, huge change from the book. Clear vision with what they're doing. Hades, big change from the book. Clear vision.
Yeah. Like them just having to change from St. Louis to Nashville. Like they had to completely rethink the spatial geography of a scene.
Yeah.
And then we both, have, relatively positive feelings to the Series of Unfortunate Events movie, even if it has its problems.
That one's got more structural problems where it's where it's just having to mitigate the future and plan a finale based off the finale of the first book, and putting 3 books into one thing.
But ultimately, like, I've talked on and off about how my younger self, I was a purist.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the perfect nail in the coffin in that type of like character development for me, where it's like, I can now acknowledge, now that I'm, no longer a kid, the problems with this is that it sticks too close to the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had been a little bit more flexible with things, maybe they had cut some characters, maybe they had cut some story beats, they could have come up with something a little bit that would have flown a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, haven't read the book. Can't speak too much to the adaptional changes, but like adaptional changes need to be made.
Yeah. It's called adapting for a reason.
Yeah, they're to stay topical. Why am I saying to stay topical? We never stay topical. To be topical, House of the Dragons has to make some pretty big changes to what is 200 pages of an 800-page book to get you to care about anything going on in that first season.
All that being said, though,
mm-hmm.
I did still have a good time with this movie.
Oh, I was bored out of my cranium. It's so bland.
Oh yeah, there's nothing here, but like, I think it's
also, I was having to like fight against the false memories that were implanted in my mind of this movie. Right, I've seen this once in 2007.
Yeah.
And I like don't remember any of this, but the stuff I do remember is completely mixed up.
I think this is only the positive. I have only the positive elements of nostalgia rewatching this, where it's like this is just like visiting a younger version of me. And yes, it's bad. But I'm not mad at myself, like my young 2006 self, for liking it either.
Oh no.
I'm not mad with my like young 2008 self for getting this on the Y rewards website. I will never watch it again. That being said, I totally get why a young Caleb who already loved fantasy stuff and Star Wars would have latched onto this so much.
So we had I forget if we talked about it a little bit, but Disney is now the copyright owner of the film adaptation of this. There is a TV series, a Disney Plus TV series for Eragon in production now. What changes do they make to make it succeed?
Well, okay. I
forgot if we talked about this on the Percy Jackson episode or not, but I feel like that one's a lot easier. That one's stick closer to the book.
Yeah, this one is a little bit more challenging because I feel like you have to go beyond Eragon to like talk about the problems with adapting this. Specifically, that Eldest and Brissinger are just exposition dumps. They're him learning magic. They're him learning lore.
Dear God.
It's a lot. It is like the Cimmerillion. Not as well written, but it's like the Cimmerillion.
So you have 8 episodes for season 1 of Eragon covering Eragon.
You can easily just do Eragon.
Yeah, like, you can. And I think you can do that dragon growing stuff that you miss out. And I think the problem here is you're going to lose a lot of viewers' interest if you spend like 4 episodes if they don't nail that relationship again.
Yes, that's true. But I think it's very easy to nail that relationship. I think the problem now is that people are going to be comparing it to How to Train Your Dragon.
That's true.
And we have a bunch of other, hopefully they market this solely towards kids, because if they try to market it towards adults are just going to compare this to House of the Dragon
and Rings of Power.
Yeah, which won't work.
Already a debate, and already a lot of people lost interest in Rings of Power like immediately because that was such a slow start.
But I think what you do is, so his brother in this is
his clone.
Yeah, well, they do look very similar in this. In the second book, he does a lot of stuff, and like any plot that's in the book is on him. And so what I think you have to do is kind of bring some of that stuff forward and maybe speed up him learning, like pull some of the stuff he learns in Eldest and insert it here while also buffing up the brothers plot. I think that helps. That would help adapt this the most. But it's going to be a challenge for them. I think they'll be able to do it. It's not something like Percy Jackson where I'm going to be there day one to watch it. But I hope it works. I think I've been saying for a long time, if they adapt this, it should be a TV show. And I usually don't say that about things. Like, I think Percy Jackson should be movies.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. I don't think there's enough story there for a season of television.
I don't think so either. I think they're going to struggle pretty hard to fill an entire season of that kind of stuff. Like, it works as a book, but there's plenty of stuff you can cut from a book, like when it's that episodic of a journey.
But I think because Eragon doesn't have a good overarching plot, I think you'll have better luck cutting it into chunks.
Yeah, because my thing is, man, this is boring in an hour and a half. And, maybe it's missing stuff. You say it's pretty beat for beat. So I'm like, you stretch that out into like 6 hours or 8 hours, whatever it may be.
Beat for beat in the sense that all the beats they have are in the book. Okay. There are also a lot more beats in the book.
Okay.
Like, they cut so much. Like, the fortune teller is a whole character.
Okay. Yeah. And, maybe if I've been getting back into reading, about to wrap up Song of Ice and Fire. So maybe, I'll go to the Inheritance Cycle. It's something I missed as a kid. And, it's still pretty highly regarded for the most part.
I don't think it's bad. I think that it has clear issues.
It's weird. Don't like fantasy. But those are the kind of books I read the most.
You do? Yeah, that's true. I actually think you'll have a better time getting through those than you had getting through The Witcher.
I mean, as long as they're not doing stupid names that like Witcher's base problems is that it's just way too high of fantasy, and there's just way too like foreign of words that they're trying to make stick, but they just don't stick.
Well, this does have its entire...
And it's terrible pacing.
This has its entire magic language. I would say Eragon is more It's
that was one of my complaints. They're talking about Bronze showing Eragon the magic language, and I'm just like, these are just made up words. Like there's no rhyme or reason to why these words sound like they do.
it's Christopher Paolini's biggest problem with it too. I remember in an interview him being like, "What would you change?" He's like, "I would fix the magic system." But I feel like it has the veneer of high fantasy. Like there are the elves and there's the dragons and all that stuff, but it's pop fantasy at its core.
Yeah, maybe I'll read it. Who knows? I want to read more. I've been doing it. That was one of my resolutions this year, and by God, I did it.
Oh, you sure have. How many books would you say you actually enjoyed though?
Probably read about like 13 this year. I think a solid half, because half of those have been Witcher books.
Yeah.
Which I'm not having a great. I started out really liking, and then the main plot kicked in. I started really not having a fun time with it. When it was just episodic side stories, it was really good. But yeah, I've really enjoyed Game of Thrones. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was decent enough. It was interesting. The Final Fantasy book that was canceled DLC, I enjoyed.
What was your favorite? What would be your recommendation to the listener?
Oh, I mean, Song of Ice and Fire is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I know the big thing is if it's never gonna end, but man, is it a good book series.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. The book series that's been hailed as a great fantasy series for decades is still good.
The critically acclaimed shows based off the critically acclaimed books is critically acclaimed.
The series written by like a consummate professional is better than the one written by a 15-year-old. Yeah, I we won't probably follow up on the podcast, but I do think it'd be interesting for us to just have that conversation if you do read Eragon. So, because it's a formality, is this hot trash?
No, it's a bland trash that I didn't even realize got put in the trash can.
I think with the right group of people, you could have a really fun time roasting this. That wasn't our experience.
No,
I don't know. I think
there's goofy stuff in this movie for sure, but there's just not enough here.
Let your kid watch it. I think your kid would have a good time with it.
Yeah, this movie's PG. Like, yeah, this is aimed at children.
Yeah, and that will open doors, or at least for me, it opened doors into reading this very long series. And it's good to engross kids' imagination and stuff. So, Joe, next time we're returning to theaters.
Is this gonna be next time?
Yeah, this will be our Christmas episode.
Okay. Wow. Really putting it all in this movie, basically. To try to save this bland year.
So 7 episodes since we've been to theater.
Has it really been? Wow.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to?
I don't know. It's not like we haven't been to the theater.
True.
I'm hoping for an empty theater. It's been a long time since we've gone to seek out like a hot trash movie in theaters where we were able to riff on the movie at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that is a big part of succeeding in these. Well,
we got to do that with the One Piece movie, but
we have to do that with Pray for the Devil.
Kind of, but that there were more people there.
There were more people in there, and Smile. We were able to do a little bit of it with, but
yeah.
This podcast has beaten us down in the horror department of things.
I think here's what I'll say. I wanted to move away from going to the theater. However, what the theater holds that these miniseries haven't is an unknown factor. This movie does not have a reputation yet.
All we have is the trailer.
And so, Joe, what are we watching next episode?
I do not know the name of this movie.
Violent Night.
Violent Night. Okay. I was like, Bad Santa? Like, I'm pretty sure that's a movie already.
It is. This is the Daniel Handler Santa Claus.
That is not his name.
Whatever.
David Harbour.
David Harbour.
Daniel Handler.
Lemony Snicket. Lemony Snicket coming in from the rafters. This is David Harbour's Santa Claus, but he beats people up movie. Much like the Mel Gibson,
Seasons of Beatings.
Much like the Mel Gibson Santa Claus, but he shoots people movie from a little bit ago.
I like that movie.
I didn't, so I'm looking more forward to this one.